everyone, it's Bethany from Beth and Books and welcome back to this book nook. Today I am coming at you with a if you like this, I think you will like this video. I've tried my hardest to find popular books and they're like more unpopular siblings so that this isn't just a whole recommendations list of books you've already heard of before. So hopefully there's a few books in here which tickle your fancy and are a bit different to ones you might normally read. And the books that I'll be talking about in this video are primarily contemporary, romantic and fantasy novels, but they do span both YA and adult. I will be doing hopefully a more thriller mystery one, but I've got to, read those kind of genres first, and I haven't read that many books yet. I'm still dipping my toes in the water for those genres. So let's get into it. The first pairing I have to recommend you is If You Liked Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I think you will enjoy Radio Silence by Alice Osmond. Both of these novels have similarities in that they're talking about like fandoms and people who enjoy a world someone else has created. In Fangirl, our main character Kath is a fan of the Simon Snow world and she writes fan fiction for it. Radio Silence follows a couple of people. There is the boy, he creates the YouTube podcast video world, and there's the girl who is a massive fan and creates art for this. So there's that similarity between the book in terms of fan fiction and world building, but there's also a really nice correlation between friendships. Fangirl does have a romantic subplot. Radio Silence does not have a very strong romantic subplot between the main characters. But another thing to note here is that Fangirl is a little bit more lighthearted. Radio Silence does talk a bit more about depression and anxiety and the pressure that you could feel when you're part of this world. So the creator's pressure, and imposter syndrome, those sort of feelings. Also a little bonus to add into this, if you like either of these, I think you might enjoy Eliza and Her Monsters, which is also of a similar vein to do with creating a story that other people get really passionate about. Again, Eliza and Her Monsters is a little bit more darker, talking about the social pressures as well. Next up, if you like A Dark Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, then I think that you'll like the kind of more adult version, which is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. In both of these books, I believe the magic is quite a central focus. So in Dark Shade of Magic, you have our main character who is jumping through the different worlds, and in Miss Bond Book 1, The Final Empire, the magic is a lot more intricate, but the different levels of magic within the different people have a sort of similar ringtone to A Dark Shade of Magic. Also, both books have this kind of vibe of not everything is okay. There's some underlying tensions. There's a lack of hope in the general population at times, and the main characters themselves are quite torn. Neither of them are personally perfect. They each have their flaws, which means that in both books you see the main character go through some personal growth. Next up, if you like Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, then I think you'll really love The Grace Year by Kim Liggett, to the point where I actually think The Grace Year is a stronger book. The Handmaid's Tale has more subdued messages of feminism and there's not a huge uprising happening, which is good for its own reasons. But The Grace Year is like that, but more things happen. Our main character is more aware of what she can do to help the revolution. We follow her and a group of girls the same age as her as they have to survive together. And so there's similar vibes here of woman to woman friendship and supporting each other and looking out for each other to fight the males who are the ones with all the power in their world. Also a bonus one here, if you like The Hunger Games, you'll like both of these books as well. It's just that feeling of a lady, a woman, a girl looking out for herself and doing what she has to do to survive in a world where people want you to act differently. Granted, The Hunger Games is a lot more action-packed, but there's still that central focus. Next up, if you like The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, then I think that you will like Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is less to do about what actually happens in the book. Night Circus is more about two people who are prophesized to battle against each other until one of them dies, whereas Ninth House is more of a fantastical, trying to survive demons set in a university kind of vibe. But both of them have this atmosphere to them. Night Circus, Morgenstern is all about describing the different tents you enter and really transports you there. Ninth House has this atmospheric, Halloween-y dark, foggy vibe, which you just feel completely immersed in. It would be a really good Halloween read, actually, now that I think about it. And Bardugo just did a really good job of, even if the plot was a little bit slow for some people, building up the tension and layers of the world. So if you do go into ninth house, don't be expecting heaps and heaps of action, but just be prepared to settle back and be fully immersed and carried away with what's happening around you. A bonus recommendation for this is if you liked the ninth house, I also think that you might like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, in that the writing styles at times just seem similar to me. Again, quite different plot events. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is more of a mystery thriller, whereas Ninth House is more of a fantasy, like low-key thriller, but they both are really good in building tension and suspense. Next is, if you like the Wayward Children series, then I think you will like The Starless Sea. Again, another Erin Morgenstern recommendation. I just think she's a really good writer. Both of these books are similar in the sense that you have different doorways and you never really know quite where you're going to end up as a reader. This could also be a really good transition from young adult to more adult fantasy, mystery kind of vibes. And I feel like in both stories, for me anyway, the highlight was the worlds that the author transported you to. As you may already know, Wayward Children, you follow the kids who are going to different worlds. In Starless Sea, you're following our main character Zachary as he's discovering new worlds for himself, and he enters all these different rooms, and it's just a really nice story of going into different places, letting your imagination run free, and kind of just pondering what else could be out there. Extra bonus for this one, again, Alice in Wonderland. A different genre, a different age bracket altogether, but they all have that different idea of stumbling into a new world and discovering it and its inhabitants. The next recommendation I have here is that if you liked Serpent and the Dove, I think that you will enjoy The Merciful Crow. I also really need to throw in another book here, and that is The Eyes of Tambora. So I think all three of these books do a quite enjoyable job of the enemies to lovers trope. Granted, in each book it is kind of at a different level, but each of them starts with the characters, for whatever reason, disliking each other, and then getting to know each other that bit better, understanding different perspectives, and then growing to, enemies to lovers. All three of these deal with different class systems. There's fantastical, magical elements to the story without it being too huge of a main focus. Serpent and Dove is witchy. Merciful Crow is more about the power surrounding certain people and their actions. And then The Eyes of Tambora is magic in relics. All three of these books also have a conversation and discussion around oppressed people. So in Serpent and Dove, the witches are frowned upon. In The Eyes of Tambora, the sun-cursed are frowned upon. And in The Merciful Crow, the crows are frowned upon. And each of the main characters in those books comes from that oppressed perspective. Next up, if you liked Paper Towns, then I think you'll like The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This one is a little bit older, a little bit more of a modern classic, but both of them do really good jobs of showing friendships, and not just friendships between one person and another, but friendships as a whole. They both are talking about high school students, both from a boy's perspective, and both have this this theme of unrequited love. I do personally favour The Perks of Being a Wallflower just because I feel like it has a more realistic perspective of what high school could be like, and also it has brownie points because it comes from a perspective which, although not explicitly said, we are led to believe is someone who lies somewhere on the autistic spectrum or has some sort of learning difficulty when it comes to social cues. Next up, if you like The Six of Crows, then I think you will like Seafire. Essentially, Seafire is Six of Crows, but women on a pirate ship. Both books have really strong links to do with crew members and keeping each other's trust and just always being there for each other. Seafire is one which, as I've just briefly mentioned, is on a ship, and our main characters are kind of scavenger pirates, and they try to go and find this piece they need for their ship after a battle, and stuff just goes downhill. I think both stories are really good at carrying you away with what's happening in the plot. Six of Crows potentially does a bit of a stronger job in terms of making you care for the characters themselves, but the underlying theme of just sticking with your friends and being true to each other is relevant in both. Number 9, if you liked Throne of Glass, then I think that you'll like Poison Study. Poison Study is a series I haven't heard talked about a lot on any social media platforms. This is a story which came out before Throne of Glass. Poison Study has our main character who is rescued from a jail by one of the king's men and is trained up to become a king's assassin. Sounds very similar to Throne of Glass, which is the reason I'm recommending this. Obviously, Throne of Glass is a decently long series. Poison Study also has 6 books in the entire series, so the plots do deviate from each other, but they both follow that main character from that same beginning point. I do think Poison Study is a bit more adult in that the main character has to, how do I word this, put up with more realistic issues in a fantasy world. She's carried away on things which could realistically happen to someone in that world, whereas sometimes Throne of Glass, for me anyway, got a little bit too far-fetched at times, but it was still a good series. And lastly, some contemporary romance. If you liked Alex Approximately, I think you will like The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. Also thrown into the fray here is Emergency Contact. They are all slow burn romances. You see both people in the relationships slowly getting to know each other, and so it's really that development of seeing them come together. Just little things that separate them is the setting, really. Alex Approximately is set on when our main character is on holiday. The Bookish Life of Nina Hill is a more adult main character who is more introverted and is staying at home. And Emergency Contact, our main character is at university, and her love interest text each other to get to know each other. All 3 of them are just really happy reads, slow burned and well. So those are my 10 if you like this, I think you'll like this books. I really hope you enjoyed this video and have come away with something new to read. If you did enjoy this video and want to see some more content from me, please consider leaving a cheeky like and subscribe down below. Hit the bell icon. Enjoy all the places you go on your own reading journeys, and I'll see you next time.